Good morning. Such a glorious morning, I thought I'd pop out on the ZZ-R600, give you an update. Do a quick video, wait for that car to go past. This is the New Forest War Memorial for the airfields. It's a really stunning place in a morning such as this morning. I haven't done too much with the ZZ-R6 recently, so I thought I'd pop out and do a quick video. Jump on board, guys, see what you think, and enjoy the video. Thank you. Well, welcome aboard, everyone. Hope you enjoyed that little intro. As I said, here we are at the War Memorial for the New Forest airfields. It's a fantastic memorial, and during the wars, particularly World War II, the area was heavily used for military airfields. And this little ride will jump aboard the old ZZ-R6 here, and we'll take a ride between this memorial and one of the airfields mentioned on the list there. We'll go to Holmesley. That's not very far, it'll take about 15-20 minutes, and we'll see how this gimbal comes along. I've mounted it on the helmet, and let's see what we get. It's a glorious day today. Hopefully this microphone should work out as well. I'm asking a lot of the camera here, so let's see what she copes with. It's a lovely part of the world down here in the forest. I am very lucky to live here, I know that. This is the first one of the airfields. As you can see, it's very busy with campers. It is the bank holiday weekend. It's about 20 past 10 in the morning, so everyone's had their breakfast. Just making the most of this glorious sunny weather. So I've had this ZZ-R for just over a year and a half now, actually, and it's really become a garage favourite. And as I've said a number of times, I have owned a lot of bikes, and I really think this little ZZ-R6 is massively underrated. And although it's already highly regarded as a really capable all-rounder, it never seems to be held in the same regard as things like VFR 750s, CBR 600s, and we'll cover some of the reasons why I think this has always fell a little bit short of those bikes in some people's eyes. I'm not going to say I necessarily agree with them, to be honest, having owned all of the bikes I just talked about. So around this sort of time, so mid to late 90s, there was lots of bikes that were pitched at the sort of sensible, cover everything, mid-ground sports bike come sports tourer. If we go through the manufacturers, Suzuki had the GSX 600F and 750, which is largely a very similar bike to the 600. And very capable bikes they were. They were built to Suzuki standards, so mechanically fantastic, although cosmetically they looked used very quickly. The 750 particularly was an excellent bike, and largely being a really popular section of bikes during that time, all the manufacturers got involved, and part of that reason was to try and take on the CBR 600, which is a very high benchmark to set. The CBR 6 being quite rightly regarded as one of the best all-round bikes ever made, and you certainly won't get an argument from me on that. They really are fantastic, having had a couple. So Suzuki had the GSX 600. Yamaha, I guess the FZR was kind of like their mid-range kind of thing. They had the XJ600, which was really harking back to the 70s technology, really. I did have one of those. Although it was a good bike in its own right, it was air and oil cooled. Which is nothing wrong with that, but it just shows that the architecture essentially goes back to the XJ550 motor. So it's a generation behind and certainly felt like that to ride. Although it was very good looking. Lots of bikes out today, as you can see, is the Goldwing there. VFR 800, which is leads me on to Honda. Thank you for that little segue, that was perfect. The VFR 800 and 750 really stole the limelight for the middleweight sector, as I can do everything plus I can do a bit more than you think I can sort of category. And seeing the sales figures of that, Kawasaki really wanted a piece of that action. Having previously offered things like the GPZ 550s, which again is a great bike. There's nothing wrong with the GPZ 550. I had one up until recently, but essentially Kawasaki wanted to keep up, and the ZZ-R600 was born in '92, I think was the early ones. And it got very close to giving Honda a fright. The only thing that Kawasaki should have spent a little more time and money on with these is the suspension. And to prove my point, these were quite successful with things like the TT. Once the suspension had been changed for something good. And I think he's actually won the World Supersport Series, or British Supersport, I'm not sure which one it was, but I'm fairly sure it was John Reynolds raced one of these quite successfully. And it certainly got tagged as a close call but could have done better, and I think that's, to be honest, quite fair. Honda had clearly put a lot of time of effort into the VFR, and it showed. I still think it's one of the best bikes ever built, having owned a couple of them, for all the reasons everyone knows. So Kawasaki, when this model was first released, it actually did reasonably well. But the road reports at the time were a little bit unfair on it, in the way that they were a little bit critical of the build quality. It's really not that bad. It's certainly as comparable as many bikes of the 90s. Where it does get let down is things like paint on the wheels, and the alloy parts do fade quite quickly, or do go tarnished quite quickly. I agree with that, but the actual build quality of the machine is very, very good. Certainly mechanically it's great to work on, and in my experience, Suzuki's around the era, you can guarantee pretty much every fixing will round off or strip or snap, particularly exhausts. It is a known problem with anyone that works on bikes of the era. We live in fear of exhaust studs on Suzuki's from the 90s and early 2000s. They have a proclivity for snapping, and they're an absolute pig to get out. I guess it's the alloy they used at the time. And as you can see, it's absolutely glorious out here today. It's about 18-19 degrees. And we're rolling along now between sort of 50 and 60. The traffic is heavy today. I'm not going to be pushing on. And I really loved this ZZ-R600. It was something that came into the garage as a bit of a surprise, really. And what caught my eye was the mileage and the cost, to be honest. The mileage was ridiculous. When I got it, it wasn't even 8,000 miles. And that was absolutely genuine. Although I'm not a massive believer in the theory that just because it's got a few miles on it means it's worn out. I think any bike that's looked after properly can run into hundreds of thousands of miles without any serious issue. It's how they're looked after, not the mileage. You might get something that's done 10,000 miles and be a complete wreck because it's never been touched in its life. Or you might get something that's got, 10 times that, over 100,000, and be mechanically perfect for someone who knows what to do and has looked after it. But getting into context with this ZZ-R6 again, it's not a sports bike, although it can be ridden fairly quickly. The architecture and the layout of the machine, along with the suspension, it's not set up as a fully sports bike. The Sports Tour is exactly the bracket it sits in. It's got a proper dual seat. It's very comfortable to up. It's a good size. The fuel range is fantastic. You can get 160, 170 miles before reserve quite easily. The brakes are nice and progressive and can be powerful if you want them to be. The fairing's absolutely fantastically massively, hugely big. And the weather protection because of that is really good. I've ridden this bike all year round through some really foul weather. And the big fairing really helps. I'm a big guy, I'm 6'1", and you can actually get, other than the extremities of your body, your arms, obviously around your shoulders area, you're very, very well protected. On a day like today, cruising around in the forest, this is exactly what this bike is built for. When you get a nice bit of clear road, you can enjoy it and enjoy the benefits of that great engine, but it's also fantastic around town. And one of the things I really wanted to highlight in this video, as I said at the start, was just how undervalued these bikes are. You can pick a good one of these up for 1,500 quid, maybe 1,000 for one that looks a bit ropey, that mechanically is all there. And that price is coming up quickly. I think people are really starting to realise now, with a few simple mods, these can be a fantastic bike. The reason again why I think it was undervalued was just it was up against some very good competition and perhaps taken slightly out of context against modern bikes. And now modern bikes are getting so small and so compact, and I guess to some degree so technological. Bikes like this become more and more relevant, and a major service on a modern bike can cost you £600-700 quite easy if you're having valves and things done. And these older bikes just cost so little to run. I'm really not going to hurry along today, guys. As you can see, it's very, very busy. Although we're in a 60-mile-an-hour limit, we're doing 45 miles an hour. There's going to be people everywhere today, cyclists, wildlife, cars, tourists. It's just not worth hurrying along when it's like this. There is times when I will enjoy myself and times when I will enjoy the upper revs of the engine a bit, but today is not that day. And my former colleagues are going to be around on their bikes as well, so it's just not worth the risk. Having recently done a driver awareness course. I've got a window of 3 years now where if I have any more reasons to do one, then I won't have the option to do it. It'll be straight points. I don't want points on my licence. I've had this bike for 18 months and I've done so little to it, and it's given so much in return. All I've asked of it It's just to be reliable, be comfortable, be quick, and be good looking. And to be honest, it's done all those things. As you can see, this is a glorious part of the world, the forest. Nice bit of scenery there. Although this video is titled about the ZZ-R6, I wanted to show you more about the forest as well. It does get extremely busy, particularly on bank holiday weekends, which you can understand because there isn't many places like this in the country now. It's very stereotypically English, by the cottages and the little country pubs. And what you will find with the forest is that the south side of the forest is very, very busy, and this northern side, it's actually not too bad at all. Now up here, guys, you'll see something really interesting in a minute. I'll see if I can pick it out through the trees, which are really heavily grown at the moment. There's a really random fireplace here, completely in the middle of nowhere. It's within some trees. And this is one of the unique things about the New Forest, is that you will see horses just walking down the road. What a glorious animal. And the speed limit quite rightly is set at 40 miles an hour through the forest. It's almost the perfect speed in a way. It's not so slow that you feel like you're crawling along, but it's reasonable enough to enjoy the motorcycle. Well, I think that fireplace might be just up here. Let me have a look. Or is it a bit further on? A bit further on. Sometimes there's no need to say anything. Just look at this fantastic scenery. And one of the things I do want to take a few minutes to talk about, guys, is obviously now we're heading towards the start of summer, end of spring. Lots of people have got their bikes out after a few months not riding them. Please just take a few minutes, or at least a bit more than that. Give your machine a good check over. Basic things like tyres, oil level, brake fluids, clutch fluids, all your service items. Just give them a quick check. Just because it was working perfectly when you put it back in the garage 6 months ago doesn't mean it's still the same now. And working in the health system, I can say unfortunately we do see a lot of riders that pull their bikes out of the garage, hit the button and ride off. And do take your time. Here's that fireplace I was talking about. Just up here on your left. There's no one behind us, so let's just stop quickly and have a look. There you go, can you see it in there? There you go, you're right in the middle of the frame now. And what that was the fireplace to essentially a slave house. The slave house itself being based back about a quarter of a mile. And there's some interesting stuff on the old internet about it. And that's the only piece that remains. Around the New Forest there's lots of interesting things to look at and see. And I spend most of my time riding out here. I tend to do one or two things. I tend to sort of stay local and enjoy the forest. Or I tend to go ridiculously far and cover stupid miles on the same day. Sort of 500 or 600 miles a day for me is not unusual. Or I can just poodle around on days like today. camera is picking up the contrast really well. I've been playing around with the settings recently, and it's very difficult for a camera this sort of weather. What I mean by that is the sky is completely clear, which gives you effectively full power sunshine, and we're going through a dark environment, and the range between high and low is very difficult for a lot of cameras to struggle with. And this DJI P2 is one of the best at a semi-affordable price I've found. It is an HDR camera, and you've got so many settings you can choose on, frame rates and ISO settings, and in Pro mode you can pretty much make it do anything you want. It's got tracking on it, the gimbal's fantastic, the battery is not so great, but I've got it plugged into a power bank at the moment. And what we're going to come up here to in a minute is another memorial, and this one's to the Canadian pilots that very much took part in World War II, particularly on the Air Force side, and we're actually based on one of the airfields down here. And this area always kind of reminds me of some parts of the States. I did spend some time over in the States years ago, and we've all seen the films and the TV programs about what American forests look like, or national parks, and this is about as close as I've seen in this part of the country. Ice cream van, and that guy's great. The ice cream van's great. He takes cards as well. Me and the kids come out here quite a lot. This person in front's enjoying themselves a bit too much, unfortunately, for the forest. You can keep that speed down a bit, sir. There'll give you a horse round the corner. The memorial I was talking about is just up here on the right, and as you can see, it's a popular spot. Lots of cyclists base their start point from here. Again, more nice scenery. Now, for a day like today, this little ZZ-R6 is just absolutely perfect. And so many people that have got a really nice expensive bike in their garage, I really think this is worth considering as a number 2 machine or a number 3. They can be kept running for virtually nothing. Parts are available on eBay at ridiculously cheap prices. On the rare occasion you will need them. If you do need service items, again, very, very cheap. And it's in that kind of unique window where you can still get new parts for it direct from Kawasaki if you want them. Everything pretty much is available, being largely born out of the ZX-Rs and the GPZs, lots of common parts. So keeping one of these alive and running is really not an issue at all. It's really, really simple. And the parts prices aren't too bad for genuine. The only things you really need to watch on these are things like exhausts. Now will be hanging on for dear life if it's not been changed already. Again, there's a good range of exhausts available. To be honest, I wouldn't bother putting a standard system back on one of these. They're all made of mild steel and don't last very long. And even the most recent ones are going to be 16, 17 years old now. So probably wouldn't last too much longer, and bear in mind the cost that used part suppliers charge for them. It would make a lot more financial sense to get a brand new stainless system, or as the case on this bike, a bit of both. What this bike has is the standard silencers, which includes a link pipe and a stainless header system, and that is about the perfect combination because it looks like it when it came out of the factory, unless you look through the fairing. And the only difference is what you're not seeing in there. There's some brown rusty tubes, you're seeing some nice shiny ones. So we're coming towards the end of this vlog, I suppose you'd call it. And keep watching the channel because there'll be lots happening. The ZZ-R11 was the significant part of the video in my last one. And there's been more progress on that. The engine now is ready to come out. I just need someone with bigger muscles than me to help me complete that job. Mind you, that probably includes my 8-year-old son, who's probably stronger than me. I'm just going through the forest here, guys, just as I do getting sidetracked. You'll see lots of the bushes and plants here are burnt. That is not unintentional, the forest is managed, and quite frequently they get diseases, they get bacteria, they get all sorts of things that impact the forest fauna itself, and as you can see here, the horses and wildlife eat it, and it can give you some very sick animals, unfortunately. That includes dogs as well. Lots of people bring their dogs out here, myself included. And you can get some very sick animals. And what we're coming up to now, this is another old airfield that I was talking about. This is Holmesley. I'm just now coming onto the runway. And where I'm going to finish this ride up is where the hangars were. And for many years this area was used as, believe it or not, council housing. Going back where we just turned right from the main road. There's a section there that was all the old wooden sheds and essentially residence for all the crew and pilots who used to live here. And that just after the war was used for social housing. Which was a brilliant idea and certainly making the best of what we had available at the time. So this has been a slightly different video, guys, hasn't it? Normally I'll go on about the technical specs of machines and go on about exactly the ins and outs mechanically. And this one's been more of a demonstration about how I think this bike does really well around this sort of riding. So this runway is about a mile long. It was used for mainly bombers, I believe. There's a signpost up here that tells you lots of information about it. Judging by the length of it and the width of it, it was for the bombers. So we'll come up here, we'll turn right here. Here we go, this is where the... Oh, geez, a whole load of Maybugs there. This is where I finished the ride, guys. There we go, I hope you enjoyed that. There we go, it's exactly a half-hour video. And hopefully that should prove of some interest for you. Thank you very much.